If you've been whining and crying and making excuses for yourself over the last little while, today I have to share with you a story called My Elvis Presley Do More Rule. Michael McLean, brassballsvideos.com. I am an ex-professional hockey coach, ex-championship amateur hockey coach turned 8-figure entrepreneur, husband, father. You can download a free copy of my book, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next 30 Days, at the link below in the comments. It's free. My brand new book is 22 pages. You can read it in one sitting, take you less than 30 minutes, print it off, share it. If you, like me many times throughout my life, need to get your shit together in the next month, this is the book that'll help you do it. My free gift to you. Put in your email at the link below, and I will email you the book within 5 minutes of receiving your email. So, what the hell does the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, have to do with the whining, the crying, and the excuse making that I hear from 99% of men, husbands, fathers, grandfathers, entrepreneurs, community leaders? The king of rock and roll, I was reading an article the other day, and it was a reminder that when we're feeling sorry for ourselves, when we're starting to buy into the victim mentality instead of the victor mentality, when we're being a chump instead of a champion, when we're being a whining little poodle instead of a badass, we need to remind ourselves of what it really takes to win in the real business world and also in the trenches of the real personal world as a husband, father, and grandfather. But I'm reminded of those 2 words: do more. Elvis Presley is, in my opinion, like Michael Jordan, like Babe Ruth, like Wayne Gretzky, the greatest entertainer. He's the king of rock and roll. Elvis Presley is the greatest of all time. I listen to stories that my mom and dad tell me about going to concerts and actually seeing the king of rock and roll. I remember as a small child listening to Elvis LPs on my grandparents' hi-fi, or whatever you want to call it, the album player, and just thinking to myself, man, how can somebody be that cool? And it's interesting because when you speak of somebody being that cool, I think about the tenacity and the relentlessness that man had. The story you don't know about Elvis Presley, which is the story that all men need to hear from time to time, is that when we're feeling sorry for ourselves or we feel that we're not getting the results that we should, you have to remember the story of Elvis Presley. Do you know that Elvis Presley has 11 albums that you might know? 10 or 11 albums in total that you might know 1 or 2 songs on. That's it. And you might think, oh, well, I mean, everything this guy touched turned to gold. I mean, 11 or 12 or 10 albums, whatever it was. But the fact of the matter is, Elvis Presley actually recorded 313 albums. I'm going to say that number again. The king of rock and roll, he did not just record and produce, 10, 11, 12 albums that history knows. He literally recorded 313 albums in total. Over 300 albums. Which then begs the question, what happened to all of these different albums? Well, what happened is they didn't cut it. They did not cut it. In other words, the king of rock and roll, like anybody, that has been a high performance person, has been a top 1% of 1%er, at the end of the day, their success, their massive success, is always linked to their massive, massive ability to tolerate massive failure. This is a guy who failed 300 times, if you consider putting an album together, recording an album in a studio, 313 albums, and your producer only picks up 10, 12, whatever it was, 13. That's 300 works of art, your craft, what you believe in. Okay, if you were the singer, if you were the songwriter, that's 300 times he was told, no, we're not going to produce that. We're not going to market that. We're not going to advertise that. We're not going to promote that to the radio stations. We're not going to write those songs and have them part of a worldwide concert. No. To the king of rock and roll, one of the best to ever do it. 313 swings, 313 times at bat, and almost 300 strikeouts. The concept of tolerating failure is fascinating. I have a personal rule that I've followed it for the last 6 years. I don't do anything important. I don't start a new habit. I don't try and start a new ritual. I don't put my toe in the water. I don't try to start something or transform my life or go on a diet or go to the gym or stop drinking alcohol or try to run. I don't do anything now at my age without a 10-year commitment. And the reason I've changed my goal setting from 30 days and 60 days and 90 days and 1 year, I'll still do the tiny stuff. But if it's worthwhile doing, if it's a mission, if it's an obsession, if it's something, my life's purpose at that time, I ask myself every single time now, am I willing to grind at this, to apply the discipline of violent consistency, show up every single day for the next 10 years? And if my answer is no, I immediately swift sword the idea and go on to something else. When I got back in the gym on December 1st of this year, Badass New Year starts December 1st, not January 1st, I didn't make that decision lightly. I said to myself, okay, I've got to get back in the gym. I got to get in the habit of lifting heavy things, developing muscle, getting myself in better physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual shape. But before I lied to the man in the glass, I asked the man in the glass that simple question. Am I willing to push that gym door 4 days a week, 30 days a month, 365 days a year, for 52 weeks, without fail, without missing, 4 times a week minimum? Am I committed to doing that for the next 10 years? Because if I'm not committed to walking or eating clean or drinking water or dating my queen or going to the gym or writing for 30 minutes or building an email list, whatever it is, if it's important, I know through my experience, anything worth building takes a minimum 5 years if you're a rock star, 10 years if you're like everybody else, and even beyond that, even 15 years. So my 10-year rule is simple. I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm not going to bullshit myself into thinking that there's any shortcut to any place worth going. That's my policy. There is no shortcut to any place worth going, and nothing of significance can be built in less than a decade. This company that my partner, Marc-Andre LeBlanc, and I've been building for almost 4.5 years. 4.5 years. Oh, you guys have been shooting videos every day, and you've shot, 600 videos, and you've done emails every day, and you put on masterminds, and you built it up into a 7-figure company with 1 employee. We're not even close to where we want to be. I'm not even close to my mission. I'm not even close to achieving our purpose. What's our mission? What's our purpose? Our purpose is to help 1 million men just like you. My job is to help 1 million elite, generous, and driven businessmen like you, husbands, fathers, grandfathers, finally live life and do business on your own terms. You know how hard that is? It's so difficult. And we're not even halfway there. We're not even a third of the way there. We're about 12% of the way there, to be perfectly candid. So we're just getting started at 4 years heading into 5 years with violent consistency, writing 1,000 emails, writing 4 years of telegrams, writing 4 years of newsletters, shooting 600 videos in the last 2.5 years. And we're 12% of the way there? That's the Elvis Presley rule. There's no sense in me walking here and whining and crying and making excuses and feeling sorry for myself. The only antidote, the only way I'm ever going to make this mission a reality in the next decade, in the next 15 years, is to do fucking more. That's it. And any time I spend any time feeling sorry for myself or making excuses for myself or whatever it is, that's time and energy that could be used to do more. I have a personal rule that I've never shared before, but before I allow myself to ever whine, to ever complain, or to ever make an excuse to somebody else, in other words, to say to Marc-Andre, my business partner, or say to my wife, or say to a mentor, I have a rule. If I haven't done 1,000 reps, if I haven't done 1,000 reps, I'm in no position to whine, cry, and make excuses. It's bloody embarrassing. So if I shoot a video 1,000 days in a row, and I write 1,000 emails in a row, and I go to the gym 1,000 days in a row, and I drink water, and I walk, and I read, and I show up 1,000 days in a row, then and only then would I give myself the opportunity to whine or cry on somebody's shoulder. But here's what's great about that rule. In everything I've been in, whether it be pro hockey, amateur hockey, the insurance business, the barbershop business, the consulting business, a father, a husband, if I'm violently consistent, like Elvis Presley was writing songs and producing albums, if I get to 1,000, there ain't going to be nothing to whine and cry about. I'm going to hit a tipping point at 600, 700, maybe 800, maybe it's even going to take 900, 950 reps. But when I get into the 900s and the 1,000 days of showing up, you can be damn sure the results are going to be there. So that's why I have that 1,000-day, no whining, no crying, and no excuses rule. And like the great Brian Burke said, he said, whining leads to complaining, complaining leads to excuses, and excuses lead to what? Excuses lead to losing. So it's mission critical that if you're going to start something, you need to ask yourself that question. Am I committed, violently committed, to showing up every day for the next 10 years, no days missed, no days off, no birthdays, no Christmas, no Thanksgiving, no I'm tired, no excuses, 10 straight fucking years, and then after 10 years, you can reevaluate. And as a bare minimum, before you even think of feeling sorry for yourself along this 10-year journey, before you think of doing something different or pivoting, are you willing to put in 1,000 straight days? That's 3 years. That's 3 years of walking. That's 3 years of eating clean. That's 3 years of drinking water. That's 3 years of prayer. That's 3 years of putting on the shoes. That's 3 years of shooting videos. That's 3 years of serving other people. And only then can you even think about, oh man, I thought it would be quicker. If you apply those two concepts, you're going to have that Elvis Presley mental discipline. Do you think after producing 313 albums, do you not think he would have said to himself, you know, why aren't they producing these songs and these albums? The reason they didn't is they weren't good enough or they didn't want to. But just that massive relentlessness that the average normie doesn't see. They just see a guy like Elvis Presley or a guy like Michael Jordan or a guy like Steve Jobs or a guy like Elon Musk or an author like Stephen King, and they're like, man, they're so talented. Oh my goodness, they're so gifted. Gifted and talented, my fucking ass. They are relentless. Absolutely relentless. And they're relentless when they get told a dozen times no, and then 100 times no, and then 1,000 times no. You don't believe me? Look up the story of any high performance person, whether they're a coach, whether they're an author, whether they're a billionaire, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're a musician, whether they're an actor, whatever it is, they've literally overcome hundreds, if not thousands, of no's. All the time, no. And that's why I find that Elvis Presley story fascinating. Out of 313 albums that he wrote and produced, he was always recording. He was in the studio all the time. Elvis was happiest and healthiest when he was in the studio. That's what he loved. He loved to play music and he loved to sing. That was his big thing. And I mean, 313 albums, and only 11 or 12 ever saw the light of day. And this is a guy who's universally considered the king of rock and roll and one of the greatest, if not the greatest, of all time. So when you're sitting there and you're thinking and you're feeling sorry for yourself in quarter number 3 this year, this year, Michael, hasn't gone as well as I thought, you know. I hope we get the election right in November, and I hope AI doesn't destroy my business, and I just hope, you know, I get some breaks this year, and I got to get walking, and I got to get to the gym, and you know, it's hard to get up in the morning. I'm so busy, and it's just been a hard year so far. I can't believe the way time flies. All you're doing is putting the knee pads on. All you're doing is burying yourself in your own bullshit. Instead, I got 2 words of advice for you. Write them down on an index card. Write it on your palm. Write it on your forehead if you have to. When in doubt, do more. Whining, do more. Crying, do more. Complaining and excuse making, do more. That's what Elvis Presley did. That's what Michael Jordan did. That's what Kobe Bryant did. That's what Steve Jobs did. That's what Ronald Reagan did. That's what General Patton did. Do more. Don't wish for it. Start working for it. And remember those 2 laws, those 2 rules. 1,000 hours till you ever consider even making a whimper about how difficult something is. You need to write for 1,000 days. You need to walk for 1,000 days. You need to show up for 1,000 days before you even make a peep about how difficult and hard it is to do something. Go to the gym 1,000 days in a row, drink water for 1,000 days in a row, eat clean for 1,000 days in a row, say your gratitude prayer for 1,000 days in a row, and then if you don't have momentum by then you have every right to feel sorry for yourself. But until then, 2 words: do more. Do more. And remember, Elvis Presley, 313 albums, and only 10, 11 of them actually produced by the record and music industry. One last thing for all you artsies, Picasso. Picasso is one of my favorite studies because the guy was just absolute badass. Absolute badass. But the thing about Picasso is, like anybody else that's a top 1% of 1%er, this guy, he lived his craft. He lived his art. He wasn't sort of in, he wasn't kind of in, he wasn't whining and complaining when he was broke. He's all in all the way. He was a burn the ships kind of guy. I got some stats here from him the other day. Picasso, 13,500 at last count paintings. 13,500 Picasso paintings. That's how many times he sat down and completed a painting. In other words, painting wasn't what he did. Painting is who he was. Over 100,000 Picasso prints. Difference between a painting and a print. He had over 100,000 prints. Just think about that. That's the power of violent consistency, where you do something 7 days a week, 300 days a month, 52 weeks a year. You never, ever stop showing up. Win, check. Win, 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 win. Everybody else is missing. You're showing up and winning. That's how people end up writing 12 books and writing this and losing 40 pounds and regaining their marriage and getting their connection back with their children. They just show up every single day and just attack those wins. One win after another. One win after another. That is my Elvis Presley 2 words, do more, rule that I always remind myself when I'm feeling sorry for myself, or I want to whine, or I want to cry. I always remind myself of what it takes to be the very best at something, the very best at something. The real intense work that takes the focus, the relentlessness, the thick skin, all of it. What it takes to actually win, personally or professionally, in the real world. You can download a free copy of my brand new book below at the link in the comments, brassballsvideos.com. The name of the book is 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next 30 Days. If you find that title offensive, this book is not for you. This book is about getting your shit together in the next month. Nothing loftier than that. And these are the 5 ways I've done it multiple times throughout my life. It's my free gift to you. It's 22 pages. You can print it off. You can share it. You can study it. You can use a couple of the ideas to start transforming your life right away. But if you're like me and you need some help along the way from time to time, getting your act together, my free book below will be a good start. brassballsvideos.com. That's it for today. Whenever you're feeling down, whenever you're feeling low, whenever you're feeling sorry for yourself or you want to whine or complain, remember the king of rock and roll. Remember the great one, Elvis Presley and remember that his massive success, like other peak performers and high performance people, his success was linked to his ability to learn and grow from massive, massive failure. Be brave, be fierce, and be relentless.